It took me a long time to realize the essence of this section. I had to talk to some very wise and knowledgeable people on the subject of chronic conditions, some of whom had been through this themselves, because I had to actually look back over my life and realize what I'd done and what changes had been made. With me, I was at the end of the road a little under 10 years ago, living in down the bottom of Australia in a very cold city, where the weather would stay cold for around 8 months of the year. And I was also on unemployment benefits at the time, and whenever I could function, I was usually pushing myself as hard as I could to get things together, to get work, because obviously that's what you're supposed to do when you're on unemployment, and also it's not enough money to live on. So what ended up happening to me is that I moved to the subtropics where I now live, and as soon as I arrived here, one very significant stress came off my shoulders, and that was the cold environment I was living in was making my pathogen much stronger, basically. And as soon as I lived in this environment, it's just been like, even though things have still been tough and I've had real bad times, it's just like a gradual incline with regards to everything, because the environment around me is warm and supporting my growth and change. The other thing that happened was that within the year of arriving here, I went psychotic and ended up with my parents for a time, and commend them for looking after me and without hospitalizing me. And my father pushed at that time, and I was very fortunate that he did, for me to get put on the disability support pension. So that took away the second stress of needing to get it together, to get work, to survive, because I was and still am I'm not able to do that. I'm simply too physically and mentally unwell. So emotional foundations, I realized it is the foundation of responding to these kind of conditions. Because even though, like, another example from my own life, even though I got put on disability support, didn't have to look at work anymore, it took me about, I reckon, 2.5 years to actually realize that I could let go, that when I felt that pressure of like, get it together, you got to do it now, you got to get your shit together so you can make some cash and do your stuff in the world, to realize that I could let all that go without beating up on myself and feeling like I was a failure was a huge step. So, and what actually happened to me, I'm going to describe now in a general way that's hopefully relatable. So, what took place with me is that I removed myself from the culture of go, 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 work, 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 make money so you can support whatever your situation is. I let that go, and then I took on the truth of the body, which is started to listen to what my body needed, when I needed to sleep, the kind of food I needed to eat, the routines I needed to do to make myself feel better. There's a very different energy between being told what you should do and knowing what you truly need. So that's it's a fundamental step in creating any kind of foundation where your conditions can improve with these kind of illnesses. And obviously that's also removing yourself from the stress of culture and from when it's saying, you know, oh, you get up and you should do this and you should do that, you need to do this and you need to do that. Letting that go and accepting that your body is in the state it's in and it has its own set of needs, and starting to listen to that and respond to that takes a lot of stress off your shoulders. So a part of that is, another side to that is living in an emotionally supportive environment. So if you're in relationships and situations that are very stressful, letting these go and finding people who are positive to be around you, at least in your home environment, or at least people who aren't causing you greater stress and anxiety in your life. They're the kind of people you want around, and that kind of, like where I live here right now, it's very unstressful. I'm not even in suburbia here, and the feeling on my body is supportive, and I've got great friends and other people living on this property, all of who know about me, know my situation, and have a positive attitude towards me. You know, no one here thinks I'm a bludger, or, you know, thinks that I'm imagining my illness or anything like that, which is great, because I've certainly had those attitudes projected towards me in the past, particularly 20 years ago when all this was very new, but I don't have that anymore. And the last side to this is the relationship we actually have to our illness itself. So, and this is something that took me a long time. I was very split inside and very hateful towards my illness. So we actually need to forgive our illness. And I know that might seem daunting to some people watching this, but forgive it for being there and forgive it for what it's done to our life. Because if we hate it and resent it every day, every moment we're awake, we're actually just not doing ourselves any favours in the long run, because it's going to keep winning. Our symptoms won't go away. They might disappear for a while, but then come back in unexpected ways, because that's one of the ways these conditions manifest. It's always unexpected. But yeah, and also to that, forgiving the illness puts us in a position where the needs and the awareness of our body in its actual state and energy comes back into the fore. And two of the things I realized with regards to that is, A, we need to realize once again that the rule of life's broken. We can't push through and adapt and get stronger. We have to instead step back and recognize our body's new set of rules, if you like, or actual breaking points, and start to pay very close attention to when we overdo something, or these kind of things, like pushing ourselves too hard, because sometimes what position that puts us in is we can be bedridden for weeks or lose our ability to function altogether, depending on our own illness and its ways and where we're at with it. And the other side to that is that we can start to recognize what actually gives us energy. So, like, for example, I had a really bad winter, this winter just gone, and at the start of it, I was just, I felt like I'd gone back about 5 years. It was really hard. But what I did is I had realised that I'd forgotten a few of the routines that I'd been employing for some time. And I started reintroducing these in my life, and then my energy level went up about 70%. And so that's an example. Like, say you start going for a walk every day, then you miss it one day, and then you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, why is things so hard again? You go, oh, I didn't do my walk. So coming back to the body and realizing, I'm fatigued, my energy is very low, but this thing improves my energy. This gives me more energy. So that's a skill that needs to be cultivated and is a helpful approach. Also, with regards to that, it's just withdrawing from what external forces say you need to do and should be doing, and doing the things that you actually love or are passionate about, because it's likely that those kind of things will also be the things that give you energy too. Alright, so when we're looking at chronic medicine, we're looking at multifaceted changes on a long-term scale. Another way, or other ways to describe chronic medicine are holistic medicine or rejuvenative medicine, or both. So basically we're just looking at putting aside that acute Western medicine model of responding to crisis and injury and rectifying those situations, and taking on the models of holism and rejuvenative medicine, where we're looking at not only lifestyle changes, psychological development, mental and emotional processing and things like that, as well as possible the putting in place of doing more activities that make us feel good and letting go of the ones that make us feel bad. But also we want to rejuvenate as well. So rejuvenative medicine, you're looking at putting the substance back into the body that the illness has taken away. We've been depleted, so we want to put energy and nutrition back into our cells and our body. But we also want to teach our body to function in the way it should again, and B, to be able to put energy back into the core and store things again in our bodies and that kind of thing. So once again, what is a chronic condition? It's when a pathogenic factor, be it a disease or just some kind of thing that's come from the outside that shouldn't be on our inside. It might have been caused by disease or trauma, shock or injury, or overwork and stress, but pathogenic factor has come all the way from the outside of our tissue layers down to the bottom core layer and made a home there. So that's what a chronic condition is. What is wrong with all of us, once again, this thing that's happened to us has led to long-term blood deficiency, or you could also call that substance deficiency, where the stored nutrition in our cells and our bodies is not only at a very low level and not working very well for us, but also probably being drawn upon by the conditions of stress in our body that having a chronic condition has put us under. So yeah, from here, what I wanted to say was, this section I had so much stuff to put in it, and I took it out for two reasons. The first being that it would make this section really long, and the second being that it would just be not relevant for lots of people. My hobbies and interests aren't as a researcher, or science or Western medicine or any of that. They're actually as my hobbies on this level of health are in traditional medicines, like particularly traditional Chinese medicine, also old Indian medicine or Ayurveda as well. So I've found amazing herbs over the years, amazing recipes. I've suffered a lot with particularly insomnia and constipation. I've learned a lot on that, and great dietary stuff and principles as well. But what I'm going to do is put those into a few documents, and I'll put my email at the end, and you can send me an email if you want to, if you want any of those. And I'll just say here, because I know this kind of thing can be important, I'm not a medical doctor, and I don't claim to have the power or responsibility over your health, and I'm not even making suggestions, hopefully, for your health. I just want to share what the information I've learned in the journey of having chronic illness conditions, and just share that information, so even if you don't get that much practically out of it, maybe you'll get something mentally, as in being able to understand in a different light what's happening to you, and perhaps then that might lead to practical action down the track. But yeah, I'm not a doctor, I'm not qualified, I'm not even doing this as a job. I did this because I wanted to turn the negative of having a really rough time this winter into the positive of sharing what I know with people. So yeah.